All right, everyone, welcome back to Morning Tea Live. Today, we are going to be talking all about why me, why this, why now, when it comes to the program Come Home to Yourself that I'm launching, and also just this work in general. There are so many things being launched out in the Instagram internet world. And I really want to talk to you today about why. Why am I spending time, energy, promoting this group that is so near and dear to my heart? I think from an outside perspective, it's easy to look at all of these coaches launching these programs one after the other and it almost loses its zest and its oomph, and it's, we lose the why. And I really want to set an intention for today's discussion in reminding people why this work is so incredibly important. It's not just a program. It's not just, oh, here, sign up for this thing. It's not, I talk to my coach all the time about it's not even about the money. Like if I wanted to make money, I could have stayed in the therapy world. I could walk dogs. I could do a million other things, but why am I choosing this? Why am I choosing this program to spend time, energy, money, and focus launching? Why? So I want to talk about that today. So take a moment, grab your tea, get cozy. And if you are tuning into the podcast, remember you can also watch the virtual version of this on my Instagram. I do Morning Tea Live every Wednesday at 10:30 a.m. Pacific. Sometimes I tend to be a little late, but we're working on it. So today I think I was only 2 minutes late. So why me? Why this? Why now? So I want to talk about why would I ask someone to invest in a program with me? Why particularly me? First of all, we all have our own unique magic. So I can sit here and tell you all of the years of clinical training I have in the year, the experience, the internships, the jobs that I've had, the clinical hours, the exams I've taken, the expertise that I have. I don't want to do that because I think in our society, there's so much emphasis on that. It's like, oh, I'm going to go to this woman because she has 2 masters, a doctorate, and has been practicing for 20 years. Great. All that experience is beautiful. And what's more important to me is that person actually doing the work that they are asking you to do? It would be like going to an acupuncturist and that person doing acupuncture has never received the benefits themselves of acupuncture. Or if you go to a doctor and that doctor has never been to a doctor. I found it absurd that in my grad school program, we were not required to go to therapy. So we're going to become therapists without going to therapy? Make it make sense. Fortunately, I had been in therapy since I was 5 years old, so that wasn't a problem for me. But for other people who hadn't grown up with 2 therapists as their parents, where the norm was to go to therapy all the damn time, for those people, they're going into this field practicing therapy and they've never been on the other side of the client. And especially with this type of modality that I've now switched into after leaving the traditional therapy world and starting my own healing coaching business, it would be harmful to my clients if I actually was not doing the work myself, because this is such an intimate container. I talk to my clients every single day, Monday through Friday, sometimes even on the weekends, because each weekend looks different. And sometimes I just genuinely enjoy connecting with them. Not sometimes, I always enjoy connecting with them, but sometimes I got to put the phone away and have those boundaries too. So it's a balance. But the point is that this is such an intimate container. We go so much deeper than I ever went with my clients in the therapy world, or how, deeper than how far I went in my own therapy sessions. And because of that level of intimacy, there needs to be this unshakable faith and trust and surrendering that happens for the client to feel fully safe in allowing you to meet them in that intimate level and seeing the deepest, darkest, most repressed parts of themselves. And so when I started my coaching business, 3 weeks later, I hired a coach, because although I had a business coach, I hadn't had a coach where I was doing this healing work in this type of modality, in this type of container. And so how am I supposed to guide clients? My work with my first client in those 3 weeks of working with her looked very different. It was very much focused on kind of the things that we had been taught in my business coaching program of like, setting goals, and it's very future oriented. And, we didn't, obviously in a business coaching program, we're not going to be trained how to go deep into the healing because that's not what that program is for. And so the first 3 weeks, I'm this brand new coach. I'm like, okay, I'm adjusting from going from this therapy world to this coaching world and using this modality. And like, what does all of that look like? And it was a really big adjustment because the therapy world, we're ingrained with so many very rigid, strict boundaries and rules and structures. And then on the flip side, there's like no structure when there needs to be structure. There's a lot happening in that world. And so both beautiful and challenging, right? Just like anything in life. And so when I came into this coaching world and I was like, what do I do? Like, what is this? What is this type of relationship? What does that look like? What does that feel like? And it was an adjustment for me. So I said, I need to be able to be on the other side of that and be with someone who actually knows what the fuck they're doing and who can guide me in learning. And so I decided to embark on my own deep healing journey where I got experience not only learning how to build a business as a brand new entrepreneur, but also learning what does this type of relationship look like compared to the therapeutic relationships that I had experienced before with my clients, because it is very different. It's similar in some ways in terms of, really nurturing and prioritizing the therapeutic relationship above anything else. And the level of intimacy, vulnerability, closeness, and depths and soul that I go into with my clients is just so different than what I was able to do in a 45-minute weekly session. It's just different. So I had to do this work, and I had to allow myself to learn through experiencing how I actually wanted to work with my clients, because it's like, imagine a kid going off to college for the first time and they're like, oh my God, I don't have my parents to do my laundry or to cook for me. And I'm all alone in this world. And like, what is this place called college? It's the same thing of like, I left the therapy world and I was like, oh wow, I can actually have freedom to do whatever I want to do. This is wild and exciting, but also terrifying. So why me is because I have actually done the exact work that I guide my clients through. So if I'm launching a program all about healing anxious attachment, and my anxious attachment is running the show, that's not going to be very helpful for anyone. My client the other day said to me, you have a really strong nervous system. And I said, well, if I didn't, that would be problematic in my ability to help you. And the thing is that this is the norm when I was in the therapy world. I had a dysregulated nervous system back then. I hadn't done this work yet on myself. I had been to therapy, but I had not rewired my nervous system. I had not healed and tended to my anxious attachment wound. And so that would show up with clients. And, I didn't really like, yes, technically we had an hour of supervision every week, but that supervisor I would talk to, they were more dysregulated at times than I was. And so it felt like you just had no support. I really need to do a whole episode on my experience in the therapy world, because it's a huge, huge, huge part of my background and where I'm coming from and my experience. And it was so refreshing to start working with my mentor who hadn't been in the field as long as me, because she was able to actually show me that I'm completely free to do things in a way that feels authentic and aligned. I had talked to her about like, but can I do this? Is this allowed? And she's like, you literally get to make up the rules, because I was so conditioned and programmed to do things a certain way, or else, my license was being threatened, or my hours weren't going to count, or, there would be some repercussion. And so being able to have someone who wasn't so ingrained in that way and was able to look at things in a different perspective and just had this like fresh take on things, and had so much more experience in other types of settings where things weren't as, rigid and controlled, but really just connecting on a deeper human level that was so needed for me. And so it goes back to sometimes we go to the people that we think make sense on paper of like, oh, this person, has the same exact journey as me. But oftentimes or just reframing that to working with someone where you see how they're feeling, how they're living, how they're healing, how they're expanding, and saying, I want to feel that way too. The second that my mentor came into this workshop and said, I gave up Netflix, even just that one sentence, and I had been struggling with a TV addiction that I didn't even know was an addiction because I was so asleep. I was asleep to my own addictions. And so to be able to have someone who feels the way that you're so desperately wanting to feel in life, that to me is more important than how many years, was she in the therapy field? How much can she relate to my experience? Because the point is that everyone has their own journey. Everyone has their own experience. And sometimes just life experience can be way more valuable than how many books you've read on the topic or how, like, we need to be out in the world actually experiencing it. And so when I talk to clients about what to look for in a mentor and a guide and a coach and a healer, is this person feeling and living not just what it looks like on Instagram, but like their energy? Is their energy something that feels relieving and expansive for you? When I get around my coach and her energy is like, I feel connected to myself. I feel abundant. I feel powerful. I feel radiant. I feel able to be with my pain. I feel able to release my addictive behaviors and not watch Netflix for 40 days. And she did these Kriyas for 1,000 days. Like when I get around someone like that, I'm like, oh, like there's another way to live and there's another way to feel. And I want in. Sign me up. And so, yes, I do have the background and the clinical experience and the training, but to me, that's just the cherry on top. The meat and potatoes of why people choose to work with me is that I'm actively walking the walk of this work. I am a living, breathing embodiment of this work. I have invested time, energy, money over and over and over again. There were months I didn't know how I was going to pay my rent. And I would joke to my coach of like, well, this comes first. This is priority because this is like the oxygen that I need to be able to birth this new version of myself. And that may sound intense or dramatic, but that's how it feels. It feels like, oh, there's this breath of fresh air. There's this new way. There's this person that can actually show me how to feel how I want to feel. And so the fact that I have done this work on myself allows me to be that safe, strong nervous system for you when you are dysregulated, when you are triggered, when you are projecting. It allows me to see what is my shit and what is your shit. Because if I'm projecting my shit all over you, that's not actually going to be helpful for you. If I'm unable to see what's actually happening for you from a neutral, clear lens, because I'm able to be with myself and therefore I'm able to be with your stuff, right? The external is always a reflection of the internal. So if we are not able to be with what's coming up for another human being because it's so deeply triggering for us, that is a sign that we have not dealt with our own stuff internally. And by stuff, I mean unprocessed trauma, our triggers, the narratives and stories that come up around those triggers, our shame, being able to be with our shame. We all have shame as human beings. We weren't born with it, but it developed, right? We developed so much shame that shame blocks us from actually looking at ourselves, not in a way to beat ourselves up, but being able to look at things without making it mean anything about us. That has been the ultimate game changer in my healing journey. being able to hear things, hard, painful things, and not making it mean anything about me, but just understanding that that is going to be in my best interest. I want someone to say the hard things. I had the other version. Every time this gets so fucking hard and I want to hide and run in a hole and say, no more. I've been triggered enough. I'm activated enough. I'm exhausted from doing this healing work. I do have those days. I'm human. And when those days come, I look at what's the alternative. What's the alternative? I'm going to go back to a therapist who just holds and holds and holds and holds, but does not mirror back, does not ask me to look at myself. I did that since age 5. I did that for over 20 years. And it helped to an extent. It helped me have insight around myself. It helped me gain self-awareness. It helped me feel safe talking about my feelings. But it did not shift my nervous system. And if it doesn't shift at a nervous system level, it does not shift. It's just a Band-Aid. Just taking a sip. I got real passionate about this. So the point is that when you are looking to hire a mentor, a guide, a healer, a therapist, a coach, whatever, I don't even know what to call myself half the time, like whatever you want to call me, look at who they are. What work have they done on themselves? Are they asking you to invest thousands of dollars when they have not invested in in their own healing? Like, I am flabbergasted by this. I see coaches do this where they're complaining about how much their healing costs, but then they want to charge the same amount, if not more, to their clients. Why is a client supposed to trust you in investing thousands of dollars in themselves and their healing and in your business when you don't see the value of doing that yourself? Like, make it make sense. And if someone who is still running around, I mean, you can tell, like, when you talk to someone, does their energy feel frenetic? Does it feel like they are projecting their wounds? Does it feel like they're defended, where they're like just this rigid energy, right? And you won't be able to recognize this unless you've actually taken a look at your own energy. Like when you get triggered by things, when you go onto this platform and you get triggered by certain topics. I used to get so triggered by certain things. And then I looked at it and I'm like, oh, I'm getting triggered by it because I fucking want that same thing. And there's some deep core belief in me that thinks that I can't have that, but that's bullshit. We can all create whatever life we want. We were wired to believe otherwise. So the summary of this long-winded rant of why me is because I've done the work, because I am a living, breathing role model of what this work can do, how it has shifted me and changed my life drastically. I went from feeling chronically anxious, waking up every single morning with my heart pounding out of my chest for no other reason than my body was still in survival mode. We all have trauma. Some of us have big T trauma, like I had big T trauma. Some of us just have relational trauma. Some of us have trauma from just living in a traumatized world. We all have trauma. And so if your body is still stuck in that trauma and stuck in that pain and stuck in the past, it's going to respond as if it's in the past. So you could wake up in your room and you look around and you're like, oh, I'm safe. I know cognitively I'm safe. So why the fuck is my chest about to burst out of me? If you know, you know. I'm sure many of you can relate to that. Why are my palms getting sweaty when I'm driving, when I'm perfectly safe? Why am I having nightmares? Why am I mindlessly scrolling and binging TV and snacks and running around and staying busy and overworking and not just taking a moment to breathe? It's because your body is stuck in survival mode. So I went from waking up with a pounding heart to waking up and being able to just feel safe. So what does feeling safe looks like? It means that my heart is just beating a normal amount. It means that I'm able to look around and be like, wow, I'm alive. I get to live another day. I get to lean into gratitude and feel that so deeply in my bones. I've always been able to feel gratitude, but I feel it more deeply now. What does it look like in terms of my career? It means I went from feeling resentful, burnt out, not serving my clients from a full cup, to now being able to create a schedule, a life, and a business that feels aligned, that feels authentic, that feels like it's actually in the best interest of the client and myself, not just the best interest of a broken system, of a burnt out, overworked office full of people who are dysregulated and miserable. I went from feeling so confused about, do I get licensed? How do I merge these two worlds? Do I do a therapy practice and a coaching business? What do I do with all of this? I just worked 8 years of counting hours, literally spending hours, counting papers that had these hours that were put in different categories that I needed to have a piece of paper to show people that I'm a licensed therapist and that they can trust me to actually serve them. Well, let me tell you something. I know a lot of people that have that piece of paper, and it does not mean that they are actually a safe nervous system. It means that they may be able to help you to a certain extent, the way that I was, but until you actually rewire your nervous system and do the work to process your shit is going to be affecting the way you show up. It's going to affect the way that you show up. There's no denying that. So I went from confused and in this place of deep suffering and non-acceptance that I had pivoted and that I had changed and I had shifted and that I was about to let this monumental thing go. And it makes me emotional just thinking about it, because it was one of the scariest decisions that I've ever made in my life, was to actually decide not to get licensed and to burn 8 years worth of papers that felt like my safety was wrapped up in that. And I just knew that I needed to fully commit to what the aligned choice was, despite how scary it felt. And so I did a bonfire with a trusted friend. I burned the papers for both states, New York and California, because I had gathered papers for both states. I had taken double the exams. I had done everything that I needed to do. I submitted them. All that was left was to take one final test and was to resubmit some papers, because the board had fucking told me some false information, and there was a whole drama with that. And I was like, fuck this. The universe is clearly screaming at me that you don't want to do this. And I burned those papers and I cried and I sobbed and I watched 8 years of my life's work be burned. And I have never felt more free in my life. It was the best decision that I ever made. And so when we talk about what this work can do, it allows you to go from feeling stuck and confused and paralyzed with crippling fear and suffering and indecisiveness and not trusting yourself, not trusting your gut, to feeling fucking free and liberated to choose you, to choose alignment, to choose what sets your heart on fire, to choose what makes your soul feel alive and free. And you need to feel safe to do that. And that is what this work has given me, the safety I need to really show up and live as my most authentic self. Relationships. What has this done for relationships? Lord help all my past partners. Shout out to you guys. You all deserve trophies and medals. And I do too, because we all have our attachment wounds that show up. And so this isn't to place blame on ourselves. It's to have so much space and grace and compassion for how our attachment wound showed up in relationships. My anxious attachment wound ran the show. My partner would want to leave at night and I would get so anxious. Be like, where are you going? I want you to come to bed with me. Why are you leaving? I'm not going to be able to reach you. Your phone service isn't working. I would get so anxious. I felt so unsafe. I felt so unsafe to just allow someone to be. And it doesn't mean that all these partners were like aligned matches. They were aligned for the time being. And then I outgrew them and I needed to leave them. But there was so much suffering that took place, so much suffering, so much feeling unsafe, so much being triggered, so much inner child activation. And now I'm able to actually recognize when that comes up. It's not that I don't ever wake up with a pounding heart. It's that when I do, I have the awareness, the tools, the ability to really be with it and bring myself home to safety. And it's not my norm anymore. And same with relationships. I'm able to notice when it comes up and know what's actually happening so that I no longer project my shit all over to the other person and blame them. I no longer run to another person to meet my needs when I know that that's my responsibility. So I have had some experiences with relationships since starting this work, and they have brought out deeper and deeper and deeper layers of healing my abandonment wound, of healing my anxious attachment wound, of healing my medical trauma wound, of healing all of those inner child wounds. And I've been able to shift into relating differently. So when I feel fear that this person is not okay, because that's, codependents attract addicts. And I've always been a codependent where I like to take care of people. Not that I necessarily like to, it's more of that. That is how my body has known safety of if I take care of you and you're safe, then I'm safe. That comes from childhood of if parent is not okay, the child is not okay. And so we learn to take care of our parents. How many of you are still taking care of your parents? How many of you are still prioritizing their safety over your own life? And so being able to relate differently and feeling safe to do that, that's what this work has been able to give me. And so when I do meet my future husband, if you're listening to this one day, shout out to you. I don't know who you are yet, but I know that he's out there preparing for me, just like I am preparing for him. And this is the beautiful thing is that energy is everything, right? So when we go into something of like, oh, I want to go on this healing journey so that I can attract the most perfect man, it's like you're still then doing that for an external reason outside of yourself. But when you, or like me launching this group, oh, I'm going to launch this group so that I can get X amount of people to sign up. Like when you're so focused on the thing outside of yourself, that is energetically coming from your wounding, from your trauma response, from external saving of, I need this man, this client, this group, this thing to make me feel XYZ. But when you just come home to you and you focus on, I want to be the best version of myself for me. I want to live my best life for me. I want to launch this group because I believe in my whole heart that this work changes lives, and it would be fucking selfish of me to have experienced this magic and not share it with the world. So I'm doing this because I'm connected to me. I'm connected to my mission, my purpose, my vision of how this work can transform lives the way that it has transformed my own life. It's the same thing with partnership. If I'm like, oh yeah, I started this work after a breakup. Now I'm going to heal myself so that I can attract a healed man and we can live happily ever after. If that's a natural byproduct, sure. I'm not going to resist that. I'm not going to fight the universe on that. I have been fighting the universe a little bit of like, please, I'm not ready yet, but that's me trying to control timing. Because for the first time in my life, I feel fully safe to just be focusing on myself without needing a partner to feel safe, without needing TV to feel safe, without needing food to feel safe, just feeling safe in my body. It's been such a gift. And so I'm not eager to give that up. And it's not that we have to give that up when we're in partnership. In fact, partnerships can be so deeply healing. They have been so deeply healing for me, but everyone is in a different place in their journey. And so for me, I'm at the point where I've had a lot of deeply healing relationships. And this point in my journey was really about okay, I've been single before. I know how to be alone. It's not that my mom needed to like hop from one relationship to the next relationship. Like she couldn't be alone. That's never been me. I can be alone. But when I was alone, I was numbing, I was distracting, I was overworking. I wasn't actually feeling safe to just be me. Hold on one sec. Okay, dog is barking. I wasn't able to feel safe during that time. And so now it's like, I finally feel safe to just focus on myself, commit to myself, take the inspired action every day. And that's what I'm needing right now. So I trust that when the time comes and the universe wants to bless me with a tall drink of water, taller the better. For those that don't know, I'm 6 feet and I love the tallest of the tall men. So when that time comes, it's not that I've been doing all this work to prepare for him. It's that I'm doing this for me. And when you do things because it feels aligned and connected to you, everything around you starts aligning to match that, because that's what alignment is. It's that you're in alignment with yourself, your heart, your soul, what you're meant to be doing on this earth. And then everything else, friends, partners, opportunities. I mean, I can't even make this stuff up. The past 2 days, I've been feeling so connected I like so fucking excited. When you launch a group and you have no idea who's going to sign up or if anyone's going to sign up, you are leaping into the unknown and it's fucking terrifying. And it brings up all of the wounds, the abandonment wound. Will people show up for me? Will people show up at all? Will, people want to do this, right? It brings up all those things. And so when you're able to work through that fear, and by work through, feel it, tend to your inner child, process where it's coming from, release it and be with it in your body as it continues to show up. Because the thing about fear is people wait until you're not afraid to act. But fear is part of being human. So you feel the fear and you do it anyway. That's going to be a slogan on a mug one day in my merch store. Feel the fear and do it anyway. So the difference with this launch is that when I'm able to feel the fear, I'm then able to shift back into connecting to my why. And when I connect back to my why, I get so lit up by this work, so lit up because it's fucking amazing. It's life-changing. It's showing people, like when I see my clients reflect on how they have shifted in such a short amount of time, like I had one client in my last Come Home to Yourself group say that she had more shifts in 4 months than she did in years of therapy. And so when I know that this thing works and that if you work it, it works. If you allow it to work, it works. I get so excited about that. And when I'm excited about it and I'm connected to that feeling of it, things start to happen naturally, which has been so healing for my anxious attachment. Because before, when I would launch stuff and my anxious attachment would get activated, I would feel like I was chasing people, or I was just like in this frenetic survival mode of like, must find the next client. And it wasn't enjoyable. It was just pure panic and survival. And it depleted me and it defeated the entire purpose. But when I'm connected to my why and I'm feeling safe to be out of that survival mode, things happen. This is the second day in a row that I've woken up to a message from someone who was commenting on the group or a reel I posted. And it's like signs from the universe, like, yes, keep going. People are responding to this because you are connected to you, not because you're trying to find clients, not because you're trying to find a partner, not because you're trying to find the next best thing on the market to save you. It's because you are connected to you. And when you are connected to you, everything else around you aligns. And it is pure magic. And I want everyone to experience this. So we've covered why me. I walk the walk. I celebrate my clients every step of the way. They feel held and challenged. They feel loved and attuned for. They feel like I'm your cheerleader, your best friend, and your mama. Like I've had a client who's like, I know we're basically the same age, but you feel like a mother to me. And I'm like, I get it. That's totally normal. It's being able to show you like, hey, I've done this thing and it really has made me feel amazing. You want to come with me? Let me hold your hand and we're going to go step by step on the daily, doing life together for as long as we're meant to. And then why this? Because of all the stuff that I've talked about in terms of how this has transformed my life and how it can transform yours as well, and feeling how you want to feel. And why now? So why is there an urgency? So there's a different type of urgency. We have urgency where it's like survival mode of like, oh my God, I must find my next partner. I must find this thing or else I'm going to die. Because when we get activated, that's how it feels. It feels like we're going to die if we don't get or feel this thing, right? But you're not going to die. Then there's the type of urgency where it's like, I don't want to waste another moment of my life sitting in front of a screen, putting shit in my body that makes me feel like crap, choosing attachment over authenticity, choosing things that don't feel in alignment. I don't want to waste another moment of life suffering. I lived so many of my years suffering, and I believe that it all needed to happen to lead me to this point. But I also could have saved so much time had I known about the healing work earlier. Right? I've had so many clients that finish my programs and they're like, where were you 10 years ago? And I was like, I know, but everything happens in the timing that we need it to happen. Even if it doesn't fully make sense yet, it will make sense one day. And even if it doesn't, this is where leaning into faith and trust and surrender comes in. Of fully trusting that you are on your path, the universe has your back, and everything happens in perfect divine timing. I used to get so fucking triggered when my ex would say, oh, everything happens in perfect divine timing. But that's because I didn't fully understand what he was talking about. And now that I understand it and I live it and I breathe it and I see it, I'm like, oh, I see. Okay, this makes sense now. I get it. So when we have resistance like that, it's because it's triggering something, some truth in us. I had a girl yesterday that got so triggered by my reel, and I didn't make that mean anything about me. I just said, okay, this is triggering some truth and it's painful to sit with, and that's okay. I can have deep compassion for that because I have lived it. I get it. And so why now? Why not now? Why do you want to spend another moment of your life making excuses for why you can't do something that you want to do, that your soul knows that you need to do? When I signed up for this work, it's not that I necessarily wanted to do it. It's that my soul was screaming at me, bitch, if you don't do this work and heal yourself, you are going to be stuck in the same loop-de-doo roller coaster that you want to get off of. So why do you not want to prioritize yourself? Why is that person, that thing, that addiction, that substance, that behavior, that thought process, why is that more important than you? There is nothing more important than you in your life. It is not selfish. It may feel selfish. There may be guilt, but you, as Gabor Mate says, you always choose guilt over resentment because resentment breeds disease. I got triggered with resentment last week because I was overextending myself to someone that I love. And it was so painful. I had to sit with, I'm doing this thing again. An old pattern is coming up. And if I don't shift it, it's going to keep happening. Do I actually want that to keep happening? I used to get so triggered when my coach would ask me, but do you actually want that? And I would be like, well, yeah. And she's like, no, really sit with that. Like, do you actually want to be with that person? Do you actually want to eat that pizza? And I would be like, well, yeah, it's pizza. Why wouldn't you want to eat it? Or like a guy that I had feelings for. Well, yeah, I have feelings for him. So why would I want to be with him? Having feelings for something like pizza or a cute boy next door is not the same as, does this actually align? Do I actually want this? Because at the end of the day, both of those things made me feel like crap. And so I chose, how am I going to relate differently this time? So when I felt resentment coming up, I chose differently. I had a tough conversation and I said, I need to implement some boundaries here. And this is painful because I love you and it's not fair to either of us. You think you're helping this person, you're not, because it's disempowering them from actually feeling safe to show up for themselves. And if you don't role model those boundaries and be the leader in your relationships, you're doing a disservice to both of you. So I shifted differently, or I related differently, and I shifted it by having the really uncomfortable, painful conversation, by crying and just processing the deep pain. And just a side note about crying, there's two different types of crying. One is a dysregulated cry, and you're not actually processing things out of your body. You're just dysregulated. I used to say, oh my God, I'm the healthiest, emotionally sound person in the world because I cry all the damn time. There's a difference between the type of crying I was doing. And listen, any type of crying is better than no crying, in my opinion, because you got to release it. So yes, crying, cry, cry. But there's a difference between that and actually when you hit truth, when you hit pain in your body, and there's just this deep pain that comes up and you cry to release that, you're actually releasing it. You're not just staying stuck in this like spiral of dysregulation. And I got called out on that the other day. I'm like, oh, I'm crying, I'm processing. I'm like, what am I actually processing? No, I'm actually just staying stuck. So then when I actually cried and released the actual pain associated with not feeling safe to choose me, and that's why I was building this resentment, I was like, okay, now I have the safety that I need to shift it. And so I had the tough conversation, and the old me, oh my fucking God, I would have never, ever had that conversation. I would have been so, so terrified. I would have chosen anything else. And so why now is because you are a fucking powerful, magnificent creature on this earth. There is no one like you. There's only one you in the entire world. And you are doing a disservice to yourself and to everyone around you in this world that so desperately needs healing if you do not choose to do what you need to do to show up as your fullest, most powerful, authentic, brightest self. When we stay stuck, when we choose our suffering over pain, when we choose our addictions over our healing, when we choose trauma response over relating differently, we do a disservice to the world. And so we think choosing ourselves is selfish. It's actually the opposite. It's not choosing ourselves as selfish because it keeps everyone stuck. And so I'm asking you to look at how can you lean into having even just a little bit more courage and faith and ability to be with that fear and reach out for support, because we cannot do it alone. Our nervous systems will not allow for that. It feels way too scary. We are attachment-based creatures. We need to heal in relationship. We were wounded and traumatized and broken in relationship. We also need to heal in relationship. That's also a lot of what Dr. Gabor Mate talks about. So I'm asking you to look at what is more important than you feeling the way that you want to feel in your life? What is more important than you being able to create a vision for your life? What is more important than you waking up excited to live life when we have no idea how long we're going to be on this earth for? For those of you that know my story, I almost died at age 4.5. The fact that I'm now 31, that is not something I take lightly. That is a gift. But you don't need to go through a near-death experience like I did to understand that life is a gift. You need to just remember each and every day when you look around you, tomorrow may not be here. Life is a gift. Today is a gift. And when we're in survival mode, we can't really feel that gratitude. We can't really feel that abundance. We can't experience that magic. We feel like life is just shitty because life can be really fucking painful sometimes, but life being painful and being safe and feeling safe to be with that pain is so different than suffering and life just being fucking shitty. And we've all experienced life being shitty. So why do we want to experience more of that when literally there is a way to rewire your nervous system? When I say rewire, I don't just mean like this fun little idea in our head where it's like, oh yeah, we're rewiring. It's like you're physically rewiring different neural connections, different genes that go on and off, and DNA that goes on and off based on your stress, your environmental factors, your trauma. And this is how we literally pass on a new nervous system to future generations. When we relate differently, our biology changes. Like, I'm not just talking about this in terms of an idea. Like, this is physically what happens. Like, when we rewire the nervous system, we change our DNA, we change our biology, we break generational trauma, and we live in a world with war and famine and murder. And just, I mean, I had a dream about a shooting because I wake up in the world and there's shootings every day. Like, why would we want to live in a world like that? And what do we do to change it? We start with ourselves. We start with us, because that is the only thing we can do. And that's a big enough project. If every single one of us chose ourselves, there wouldn't be wars, there wouldn't be shootings, there wouldn't be corruption, because all of those people doing those things are dysregulated, traumatized, wounded souls. No one is born evil. No one is born out of the womb being like, yeah, I want to grow up and be a murderer. Like, no, that is all trauma. That doesn't excuse the behavior, but it's to understand why, the root of why these things are happening. These are deeply wounded, traumatized souls that are suffering immensely. And they cry for help by causing harm to others. That's not to excuse the behavior. There's no excuse for that behavior. There's no excuse for why we as humans are killing each other and hating on each other and harming each other when we could be relating so differently. We could be relating from an open heart. But as Dr. Gabor Mate talks about, we try and substitute with substances what only an open heart can give. So the alcohol is not going to make you feel open-hearted. It might temporarily when you're at that bar crying and pouring your heart out to the stranger next to you, but it's not going to be a sustainable option. And so rather than choosing the way that we've been doing things that clearly does not work, I think we can all agree on that. It does not work. Let's look at what is in our power, and what's in our power is focusing on ourselves so that we can focus on healing the collective. It's a domino effect. When we relate differently, we give permission to others to relate differently. When we set a boundary, we give permission to others. Oh, I can set a boundary too. When we choose ourselves over our attachments in a sense of choosing alignment, we give others permission to do that too. So why now? Is because you don't need to waste another moment. It's actually the worst thing you can do. If you're worried about being selfish, that is selfish, right? When we say, oh, it's okay, we're just going to let the world crumble. We're just going to let people die every single day. Why? Just so we can stay in our comfort zones and stay safe? When that's not actually safety, that's a false perception of safety. To me, that's selfish. To me, if I didn't choose to do this work and I continue to project onto all my partners and continue to affect my clients, that's selfish of me. That's not okay. But yet it's so normalized, right? It's so normalized that we don't actually put urgency in these things because people look at healing and it's like, oh, it's this luxurious thing. Why is healing a luxury when it's literally needed to not only survive, but to actually live and heal the world? It can literally save lives. I can't tell you the amount of people that I worked with where they didn't know if life was worth living because look at the world. It's fucking crumbling. And they realize through doing this work and through focusing on themselves and through feeling how they want to feel that life can be a different experience. You get to choose how to relate to all of it. So will choosing to join this group or any group or going on a healing journey stop all the wars overnight? No. But what it does do is it allows you to put your energy, your time, your money, your focus into the one thing that is in your power, which is you. And when you do that, that is a domino effect for other people around you. When you shift your energetic vibration, it literally shifts the energy around you. Rather than one triggered defensive person going in and starting a fight with someone else, let's say someone starts a fight with you and you're just this solid nervous system. Boom, boom, boom. Like nothing is going to make you react or fight back and give the other person the reaction they're looking for. Look at how just that interaction can shift for seeing things for what they are. That's always been a gift of mine. I've been able to see things for what they are. I've been able to see others for who they actually are underneath the defenses, the protectors, the layers, the wounds. And so why me? Why this? Why now? Because you are so innately worthy of creating a life, not just of your dreams. I want you to create a life beyond your wildest dreams. I want you to leave space for so much magic to occur. Magic meaning the unknown. The unknown can feel terrifying, and it also can bring so much magic of like, my human brain couldn't have possibly comprehended or predicted that this thing was going to happen, and it did, and it's fucking amazing. That's the type of magic I'm talking about. And I want you to leave space for that. But when we are so rigid and controlled and trying to control every single thing and trying to know every single thing, because that's how we feel safe, we suck the magic and the joy out of life. And then we're just merely existing to survive. And then we get to our deathbeds and we're like, okay, we made it, we survived, and now we get to die. Like, why don't you want more for yourself? That's what I want you to ask yourself. Why don't you want more than just surviving? Why don't you want to actually feel the way you do? And I know that you do. That's the thing. We all want to feel good, but it feels so scary. It feels so scary to choose differently. And that's why we need support. We need someone who has walked through the flames and come out the other side, who's gone to the depths of hell in themselves and is able to guide you into the depths of hell and back out into the other side. So why me? Why this? Why now? Because you can come up with a million excuses, very valid, right? I don't have time. I don't have money. I am doing this other thing. I'm doing this. I have to take care of this one. They're all valid, completely valid. They come from very valid reasons, valid feelings, valid experiences, and they are excuses keeping you stuck. So looking at what excuses are you using to get in your own way and looking for solutions. When I'm like, okay, I don't know if I can pay my coach and my rent this month, but I know that I need both. So let me look for solutions. Let me focus on what's in my power. I had a client the other day telling me about how, he wasn't sure if he was going to be able to do this and this. And I'm like, okay, well, rather than focusing on what we can cut out, let's look at how you can be literally getting paid to just be you. Do you know that you can literally get paid to just be you and your gifts? And he was like, I just didn't realize it could be that simple. Like, that's how cool life can be, is we can get paid just for our gifts that come naturally to us, just from sharing what we naturally enjoy. How cool is that? Right? But we're not wired to believe that. So when you notice certain excuses or protectors coming up, I want you to look at, where can I look for solutions? How can I ask for help? I love when people come to me and they say, hey, I really want to do this work with you, but I don't know how to afford it. Can we talk through that? Yes, that's literally what I'm here for. Let me talk it through with you. You don't have to figure it out on your own. When I see people who are looking for solutions, Those are the people that I love, 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 love giving pro bono spots to, discounted spots to, extended payment plan spots to, because they are hungry for it. They want to find the solution. But if I have someone who's just like, nah, like, then you don't really want it, then I'm not going to be as inclined to push you as much, right? Because I need to know that you want this. And it's okay if you don't. It's okay if you don't want it. It's okay if you don't feel ready for it. But I will say that you never fully feel ready for going to the depths of hell with yourself. It's never a fun, rainbows and butterflies kind of time. I never sugarcoat this work. I always tell people this work is painful. You're literally shifting and rewiring into a new being. And that may involve loss. I've lost a lot of people through doing this work. It may involve being with the unknown, which is scary. It may involve a lot of change. It will involve a lot of change, but you choose your hard. Sign me up for the depths of hell. Yes, exactly. Like, both are hard. Suffering is hard, and going to the depths of hell with yourself is fucking so hard. But one allows you to actually move, and one just gets you further stuck in the rabbit hole. So you get to choose. It's always about choosing your hard. So we are about at an hour. I normally keep these a little shorter, but today I feel so passionate about this. And this is why I'm launching this group. This is why I've created Come Home to Yourself, because I know what it's like to not know how to come home to yourself. I know what it's like to be running around seeking your safety in every other person, and your partner and your friends and your jobs and your bosses. I know what it's like to allow your inner child to run the show. Little me has been so needy and activated, and I was shaming her for so long rather than learning how to just meet her needs. We all have, when people ask me, do you have children? Yes, I have an inner 2-year-old that likes to be really loud and needy sometimes. And intending to her, it will only better prepare me if I choose to have actual human babies outside of myself. But for right now, she is the main child I'm focusing on. And when I focus on her and I hold her and help her feel safe, I then can actually relate from my adult self. So I know what it's like to relate through anxious attachment. I know how powerful anxious attachment can be, and the behaviors that surround it, controlling, manipulating, using crafty ways, like in my case with my BPD episodes. And it's not fun for anyone involved. I promise you, you won't miss it if you give it up. And I want people to feel safe to relate through secure attachment. What does secure attachment feel like? It feels like you are fucking powerful. You are safe in your body. You are connected to you. And then you're connected to others, and you feel safe for them to just be them without controlling them, without trying to fix them, without changing them. And you are able to just relate from an open heart, because you've shed all of the layers, the addictions, the trauma that has blocked your heart from being fully open. So that is why I have birthed this group. That is why I feel so passionate about it. And that is why my clients continue to choose me as their healing, anxious attachment, fairy godmother, mentor, cheerleader, guide, whatever word resonates. I'm all of the above and more. And now is as good a time as ever, because you don't want to look back and be like, I wish that I started sooner. Think about a fitness journey, right? We always look at the progress pictures and we're like, damn, I wish I started sooner. So trust your divine timing. Trust that it feels aligned. You don't want to ever force anything, but there's a difference between forcing something and not doing something because of fear. So follow the calm. Your gut intuition is calm. So when you feel calm, do you feel like it is an aligned investment of your time, energy, and money to choose your healing? And if so, let's get started. Let's do the damn thing. It's not going to be easy, but I am here with you every step of the way, holding your hand, allowing you to feel safe to take baby steps forward. And if your gut says that now is not the aligned time for whatever reason, I want you to get curious around it and say, okay, that's okay. But let me keep checking in and seeing what I'm needing for myself. This is not about me. This is not about anything other than you and what feels good and aligned for you. My job and my intention is for you to feel safe enough to actually connect with that gut intuition and what you're needing. And we are all at different points in our healing journey. We're all on a healing journey, whether you know it or not. Some of us, are asleep to it. I used to literally just sleep through my healing journey. And then I woke up and I was like, oh, this is what's been happening all these years. And let me tell you, it is way more enjoyable and effective to be an active, awake participant, a conscious participant of your healing journey. So that is all for today. Thank you guys so, so much for being here, for tuning in. I love this work. I love this business. I love this opportunity to help people come home to themselves. It is the most valuable, rewarding gift in the world. So please know that you are safe to choose you over and over and over and over and over and over again. It is not selfish. It is the most selfless thing you can do in the world. And life is short. Let's fucking live it the way that we want to live it. We are not here to just merely survive. We are here to thrive and be the most fullest expressions of ourselves, but we need the healing and the safety and the processing to get there. Each thing leads to the next, right? Each milestone. So take time to come home to yourself today. Thank you for being here. I love you guys so much. Reach out with any questions. Come home to yourself begins in 3 weeks. I am so, so excited to witness the transformation and the journey that these women are about to embark on. There are still some spots left, so please feel free to reach out and get you started, because I promise you, it is going to be so fucking worth it. You have no idea the next version of yourself that you are about to meet. She is waiting for you. She cannot wait to meet you. I love you guys so much. Thank you again for being here, and come say hello on the Instagram land. And I will see you next week for morning tea. Mwah.